I'm Joe Layton. Farm here in Dorchester County. I farmed in Dorchester County all my life. Started out farming with my dad, and then farmed for my on my own for a number of years. And I guess 4 or 5 years ago, my son William came and joined us. And we farm about 1,250 acres of grain crops, and they're just starting a vineyard.
My name's William Layton. I'm 34. When I went to college, I wasn't really interested in becoming a farmer. I majored in business and got a job right out of college with Toyota Motor Sales. Worked in a warehouse for them for several years, for about 8 years. But about halfway through that, and I'd been away, was living in Los Angeles and Cincinnati, and really missed being out on the farm and working for myself, and decided I wanted to come back. Gave Dad a couple years notice so he could get things ready again and prepare myself and the family. So in 2003 we decided to come back and start farming again.
In this part of Dorchester County, we have lower, wetter soils. Quite good producing soils, hold moisture better than many of the soils in Maryland. For years I didn't use crop insurance because I really felt I had limited risk for yields until 2002, which we just had a disastrous crops. Drought, didn't have any good corn, any good soybeans. Grew the worst crops that we've grown since I started farming back in '70, and decided that we needed to make some change in our operation.
First of all, we do no-till farming here 100% because we feel it's much better for the soil and we get better results out of it, especially I think on poorer ground. We've seen that on a lot of the poorer, heavier ground, when you keep it in no-till for a long time, it actually drains better, produces better over time.
When I talk to my landlords, one of the things that I always say when I'm trying to rent land is that I will take care of your land the same as if it was mine, and when we get done, however long that may be, a year, or whether it's or 10 years, your land will be better than when it started, and that's what I believe that it should be.
Most any field you look at around the woods, I mean, you're going to lose the first six rows to deer or more.
Of course, the deer are the number one problem as far as wildlife, but around the edges of fields, you have a variety of raccoons and squirrels and everything that work on it. And in small grain, we have geese. Increasingly, we have problems with swans and sometimes snow geese. So we have a variety of wildlife problems. Over the years, like many farmers in Maryland, years ago we had cattle, we had beef cattle. We used to grow tomatoes, we used to grow sweet corn, but we've drifted into all grain corn, soybeans, and wheat. We grow them in a 3-year rotation. And we tend to look at our everything we do from a perspective of 3 years, not just 1 year. Sometimes the best way to control a weed isn't what herbicide you put on this year, but what you put on last year. And if you a lot of times weed and fertility problems may be easier to handle in one crop than another. And
when I came back, I told Dad right off, I really thought that we would need to diversify, that we had a limited amount of time before corn, soybeans, and wheat really wouldn't be enough to support both my family and his family. People have to continue to expand land, but that's really getting tough. I mean, every piece of land that comes up, there's 20 other farmers out there vying for it. And that if we were going to stay profitable and move ahead, we really needed to diversify. And we chose to diversify into grapes. And so we put that in 2 years ago. We made a decision, if we couldn't expand acres, we would try to get the maximum amount of profit and crop that we could off each acre that we did own, and what we could do to continue to improve our yields and our profitability on those acres that we did have.
My family has been farmers as far back as I know. My father was the first one in our family to own any land. His father, my grandfather, was a sharecropper, and I think my relatives before then were sharecroppers. What is our home farm now, my father grew up on, but they didn't own it. He eventually did buy it, and now is part of our operation. So we've been farmers for several generations, but William will be the third generation that this farm has been in our family.
I'm fortunate, and I think it's really tough for people that don't grow up in a farm family to get started, because certainly the biggest one is getting enough money and equipment. Land is certainly an issue. You've got to continue to grow. I mean, the cost of farming keeps getting more and more expensive. I think you have to be not just good at farming, but be a really good businessman, because I think the future of farming is looking at business opportunities beyond just selling your corn and soybeans, looking at niche markets, even if you're growing soybeans, different markets for soybeans, growing different types of soybeans, and I think young farmers have to be good at that.
And I've been farming since 1970, and risk, I think, there's more risk every year. It's larger. It takes a lot more money each year to produce a crop. A possible failure of a crop would have much more drastic consequences today than it would 30 years ago when I started farming. I think we have tried to handle it both with our production system and also with crop insurance. Our production system, we use 3 crops, which spreads the risk out. We have over time spread out just a little bit geographically, which spreads the risk. We have moved to irrigation, which takes a lot of the risk out of those acres we can irrigate. But we did decide after 2002 that we needed to include crop insurance. Before that, I did not think that I needed crop insurance, but what I found when I had a really bad year, that I need crop insurance to protect cash flow. With a really bad crop, the expenses continue on, and you just get to the point where you run out of cash.
We also, one of the other things we do is we're very conscious of how much risk we want to take when we do our marketing. When we get prices that we can make money at, we want to go ahead and lock those in. I see probably the major challenge being the price of inputs.